pleased to be joined by Queso today. Queso, welcome to the show.
Hello. Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Most definitely. So let's get right into it. What is it
Oh, yeah.
like to be a deep blue state conservative?
Oh my gosh. It's wild because I'm in Portland, Oregon. Let's just say I have dear friends that are raging liberals, and I adore them for one reason or the other. And it's really difficult because you don't have people around you that are like-minded. It's very few and far between. And so when you have these friendships that are fantastic on so many levels, you can never really go deep. You can't quite go there. And so you're always on eggshells. So I would say, from the social standpoint, it's difficult. But the other thing is you drive around and you see the homelessness, the vandalization that's happening everywhere, the graffiti, and that's maddening also. And you see people on both ends so frustrated with it, but you're the one who voted the politicians in who don't do anything about it. Right. So there's so many aspects of living in a deep blue city that is just incredibly maddening.
So let me ask you this, though. You talk about the social aspect of it, like,
right.
Do you feel like you have to kind of keep yourself in a bubble or something like that? How do you feel about like being just who you are, openly conservative?
I'm really smart about knowing my audience. That's just a strength that I have in general. So for me, I don't like to waste energy on somebody or a group of people who I know just are not open-minded to actually understanding a different approach or a different side. And so then I'll have friends that I would say are more light blue, and they actually want to know where I'm coming from. I would say all of my friends know where I stand on the political spectrum, but I just don't choose to have open discussions with them unless I truly know that they care. I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse, right? And that's just going to turn them off too. So I know my audience, and I'm not going to waste my breath on those.
I'm with you 1,000%. One of the things that I've found out over the years when I've had political discussions with people on the other side is, one, they've gotten emotional, and it's like, okay, well, we just really want to just lay out the facts, just talk about the facts of the matter. And also, what I've also concluded is that most people are not going to change their minds. And so I've stopped having those conversations because I'm like, okay, you're going to believe what you're going to believe for the most part. I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe. And there's no sense of, like you said, beating a dead horse.
Right. It's so true. It's so true. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is when it comes to certain people. I give a lot of credit to those who actually had liberal upbringing and have actually made the decision through research to go and take a red pill. I'm like, you know what? I have so much respect for people like that because I was raised just conservative, I would say. And though, yes, I still 100%, I can tell you why. But it would be so much more difficult to have the complete opposite upbringing and then to make a switch like that. I think that is fantastic.
And courageous, too. And
my gosh, absolutely.
Because, I'm sure they probably have some backlash as we have.
Yes.
Whoa, you switch sides. No, I'm not switching sides. I just want to know the truth. I just want to be able to explore these things that I've been hearing about. Like you say, take the red pill, go down the rabbit hole.
Right. Seriously. What's wrong with wanting to know the truth, wanting to go down these rabbit holes? It's like, oh my gosh, if they didn't make it so difficult to find the truth, we wouldn't have to dig so far.
Exactly. Wow. That might be the line of the year. What about like raising children and having them be a part of the public school system? What is that like?
The Oregon education system as a state, which is really unfortunate because if you actually look county by county at the state of Oregon, we are definitely more red. There are just 3 major cities in Oregon that are very blue. And that unfortunately dictates the entire state when it comes to things like the Board of Education. So Oregon as a whole, the education system is bad and very leftist. But when it comes to break it down to my children's school district, it pains me to know what they are up against, what I am up against. And my son's teacher, thank God, he's in first grade and his teacher is a patriot. We've had many conversations. She is a godsend and I feel totally fine sending him off. They say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. Then they sing the Star Spangled Banner and then they get to work. It is beautiful. Nice. My daughter's teacher, when they were doing remote learning because it's been an entire year of remote learning. They just went back to hybrid. And I was able to listen in. That's the blessing of the whole thing. I was able to listen in to what my daughter's teacher was saying. And they were pushing the BLM library as mandatory reading. You had to go pick certain books from the BLM library.
I didn't realize there was a BLM library.
Yes, yes. So my son's teacher even told me this. It's actually part of the curriculum that they have to talk about BLM, and that there is a library that is available as a resource for the entire school district. I'm sure the entire state of Oregon has it. And you have to go and pull. It's like mandatory reading. I opted my daughter out of that. It's not that I don't want her to know Black history. It's that I don't want it dictated by the BLM association. That's the problem. And so I emailed her teacher and I said, out. And so she took her out of there. And then on Inauguration Day, I heard her telling the kids how kind Joe Biden is. And he's so sensitive and really loving and a good man. And I was just about to throw up. And so I emailed her and I gave her, respectfully and professionally a piece of my mind that that's completely inappropriate. And honestly, I'm probably one of the very few that are paying attention in this school district. I mean, I'm definitely the odd woman out. There's probably less than 10% conservatives in the area that I live in. And I don't know if anyone's paying attention and really knows why behind why we shouldn't be pushing this on our very impressionable youth.
Right. No, when you think about what they're pushing out there, they literally are indoctrinating our youth and our kids with the critical race theory, the 1619 Project, all of that, and especially when they get to college. It's a long ways away for you, but it takes people like yourself, even if it's just you and a few other parents to say, hey, let's stand against this.
Yeah, exactly. It's exhausting, but you have to be aware of what's happening. And then you have to make it known that you're not okay with it. And believe me, like I've emailed my daughter's teacher on other things and she hasn't responded to me on just like nothing, just things where you would usually get a response like normal day-to-day stuff. And so it's unfortunate that my speaking out has gotten me on this list where I'm not getting any communication back now, but you have to continue on. That can't be a deterrent. We have to know what our children are being taught. They're teaching them all sorts of sexual things at very young ages. And I've opted them out of that as well. And it's not just your normal, like my kids know the basics. I'm a pretty transparent mother, but it's like letting them choose their gender at a very young age. I mean, are you kidding me? One, it either completely confuses the children, or two, it almost creates a division that was never there, where they're now like, oh, that's strange. Why would you do that? And now anyone that does opt to do that at this very young age, it's going to have them be taken back. So I just think it's a negative all around. Well,
it's hard to raise kids, especially in a blue state, in a deep blue state at that. But you're going to do what you got to do to make sure you raise them right. So
exactly. And it's like, yeah, you can always put them in private school. But the thing is, it's a huge financial burden. And in Oregon, so we pay taxes, and the taxes naturally, like every other state, they go for education. But in Oregon, if you are paying for private school, you actually don't get a tax write-off for the portion that is going to public school. We're the only state where our governor says, no, you can't do that. So you're paying taxes for public education and you're paying private out of your pocket. And it's just the principle of it. It just makes us mad. So that's why, it's just like, nope, not doing that. We're just going to continue to fight for what's right in public school.
Definitely. And so let me ask you this, though. So we talked about the social aspect. We talked about raising kids. Have you guys thought about maybe moving to a red state?
Yeah, we've definitely thought about it. And so my husband being a police officer, now when I met him, he was on the NYPD. And so I was able to convince him to get a New Yorker to leave New York City. That is near impossible. But I was able to convince him to move to the West Coast where I'm from. And so he already started over with a new police department 13 years ago. And he doesn't have the appetite to do that again right now, understandably so. But believe me, Idaho has been on my radar. I would love to move there. And I know a lot of people that are. But it's just, as far as we're concerned right now, it's just not in the cards, unfortunately.
You're married to a law enforcement officer.
Right.
Like, especially with everything that goes on in Oregon with the Antifa and all of these riots and protests.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, we're in Antifa HQ here for sure. And so, really, if I break it down to what the true problem is, it is the DA doesn't prosecute. And so naturally, the people who commit crimes are being put right back on the street. So there isn't a deterrent for criminals. And then there is a deterrent for law enforcement to, for petty crimes or even I would say like mediocre crimes. It's like, why put my neck on the line when the DA is going to squash the arrest in the first place? Mm-hmm. So it's a broken system, and the current DA, it's almost as bad as what you're seeing in New York as far as what the DA is letting go. I mean, even like stalking. I mean, that's scary, especially for women. That is really scary. And they're not throwing them in jail for that if caught.
What are they looking to prosecute at this point?
Oh my gosh. A murderer, a rapist, maybe. I mean, you can assault a police officer. They have bottles, frozen water bottles thrown at them. They have full soda cans thrown at them, chunks of wood. I mean, anything you can imagine. And minimal arrests, minimal. It's actually
required to stand down.
So the Portland Police Bureau, they're one of the very few police departments where the mayor actually serves as the police commissioner as well. So the mayor, who is the police commissioner, Ted Wheeler, he is absolutely worthless. He's a complete wimp. He's tried to appease Antifa. That backfired. So then he tried to go middle ground, and now they're really mad at him. So he's liked by nobody. The person who just ran against him, she was openly saying, I am an Antifa mayor. She only lost by 2 points. Wow. So that just tells you how ludicrous it is here in Portland. So you have your police commissioner who's pretty much trying to appease these criminals versus law-abiding citizens, and you just have a disaster. So yeah, they have to stand down.
That's unbelievable. And so obviously we know about the defunding the police movement, and I think that was an epic fail. But in your estimation, in your opinion, what would be effective police reform? What would that look like?
Oh gosh, honestly, it's a difficult one because I don't feel like there's a huge issue, at least here where I live in the Portland area. There haven't been many issues that have really called for police reform, in my opinion. After George Floyd passed while in police custody and the ripple effect took place across the nation, across the world, then everyone's being defunded. And, the crazy thing in Portland is they got rid of the gang unit, and homicides have gone up 2,000%, 2,000%. And it continues to climb. Yes, it needed to take place in some cities, but they made a mountain out of what might not have even been a molehill. Wow. And now we have a really big problem. You have to look up the statistics on the homicides too. A lot of it is the African-American community that is being negatively impacted by this. And what are they doing now? Now they're going, oh my gosh, we actually need a gun unit. We actually need some type of gun violence team. So now they're refunding and rebuilding this team that was already in place.
Exactly.
But the damage is done. If I could just add to that, body cams, I feel strongly that they are a benefit for police. It's a good thing for police officers to have. The good police officers that do what they're supposed to do for our communities. And for those few and far between that don't, they're great to have for that also. You can actually vet a claim. If somebody claims they were mistreated, go pull the camera. It's as simple as that. So I think that should be mandatory. I know it's expensive. I know not every police department can afford that, but I do think that's something that we should work towards having at least over the next 4 or 5 years.
I agree. No, I think something like that would definitely help at least ease the public's fears that something could happen to me and nobody would know. So I agree with you. There are certain things that could be put in place that are already maybe instituted already. It's just more doing it on a wider scale. Speaking of the police, obviously you said you're married to a police officer.
Right.
So I know there's an assault right now on our Second Amendment. And I know Joe Biden wants police officers to go into their homes and take the guns and different things like that. So what can we do to protect ourselves if something like that were to happen?
Yeah, so here's the thing. My husband, I test him. As you can imagine, I'm pretty feisty. And I'm a no BS person. So anytime I see stuff like this circling, I go to him immediately. I'm like, tell me what your stance is. I mean, he's definitely, I call him on the carpet. And basically, if it ever comes to it, he's not going to do it. He's not going to go collect people's guns if told to. And I know many members of the law enforcement community who that is a hard stop for them. They will not be oath breakers and break the U.S. Constitution or go against it. So my husband, he will never go do that. And I would say you'll see more and more police officers, law enforcement officers standing up to direct orders like that. I would say that then the unfortunate thing is then you have the ones like, just think about the Nazis. Oh, well, we were just ordered to do that. Well, that's the problem. You definitely have those sheriffs and law enforcement officers out there who are just going to say, well, I'd get fired. My husband said he'd rather shovel SHIT than go collect arms from civilians and break the Second Amendment like that. As far as protecting ourselves, I mean, I'm not giving up my guns. So that's just something I think I'm not inciting violence by any means. Let's just say patriots are not going down without a fight, and they are not going to willingly hand over their weapons.
Again, nothing against that, because that's what the Second Amendment is for. You know,
right.
You have the right to bear arms, and arms
right.
do anything. It's
right.
not just hunting guns or anything like that. It's any type of, that's why they didn't specify which type of guns. They just
right.
said right to bear arms. And so anything else that they're trying to create now is infringing upon that. That is the supreme law of the land. And so all we have to be able to tell them is like, look, the Second Amendment protects me from this. Anything else right now, you're infringing on my rights.
Exactly. Yep. That's just something that's just not going to happen. It's not going to be peaceful when it comes down to it. I foresee if that actually happens, which I think it will in many areas of the country, I see it being very bloody. I don't see it going over. I mean, imagine, just think about the raging patriots we have in this country. I'm just going to hand over what's protecting me. No, it's just not reality.
Right. And then also when you think about it, what does somebody who owns a gun, giving up that gun, going to do towards like bringing about peace in the community? Because the criminals are still going to find a way to get their hands on guns.
Exactly. So it's either going to push law-abiding citizens to go do things, to achieve things illegally, to still afford some protection, or it doesn't make sense at all.
And to be honest, it's the last line of defense. Take away the guns, there's no way around it. We are a socialist nation from that moment on.
Right. Absolutely.
So then I wanted to kind of jump ship a little bit, talk about something that's going on that nobody's really talking about, something that's happening in China.
Yeah, it's very sad. So basically genocide is taking place. There is a community, and they are the Uighurs, and they are Muslims in China. And basically they are in concentration camps. This has been happening for at least on a large scale for at least 5 years. They're in concentration camps, re-education camps. There is a word that, and I say word because I don't have hard evidence. So I'm just going to say there's word that they are part of the organ harvesting that happens in China. There's been many articles that talk about how China has bragged about they have multiple organs. When somebody has some type of organ failure, they have multiple organs available. How does that happen? How does that happen when in America we have a list? You have to be on a donor list. How would you just have multiple organs readily available? So these Uyghurs are being wiped out. Like I said, genocide. And it's horrible what they're doing to them. And basically, for a while, their area was not ruled by the CCP. But basically, I believe that they were under English rule. The only way that the English were going to release this part of China back to the Chinese was if they allowed them to basically operate freely, I believe, for 25 more years. And so here they are 20 years into this 50-year agreement, and they have completely broken everything that was in this agreement, and these people are being brutalized. And for those that are not Muslim that live in that region, there are checkpoints everywhere. There's cameras on every single building. We say, oh, okay, we have that here. No, not to this extent. Everywhere you go, you are surveilled. And they have apps that you can't have on your phone. They're not allowed to have WhatsApp on your phone because that is a means for communication outside of that region. So there was a woman who got put into a re-education camp for having WhatsApp on her phone. It's just a horrible place to be. And not enough people are talking about what the CCP is doing to them. Everyone should be well aware of what's happening to the Uyghurs, because China, we do so many business dealings with them. They are trying to take us over. And they're doing this. The Christians and conservatives are next. That's what's going to happen here in the U.S., in my opinion, if we don't do something.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. And so I guess the question is, why do you think this is not being publicized the way that it should?
I honestly think it's censorship. They can bury whatever they want to bury because they have that control. And that control needs to be taken away. And until we have Mike Lindell's platform, President Trump's platform out, we know people are going to jump to those. And once we have those out, I will jump off all of these big tech media platforms immediately.
The only other thing I can ask about that situation, obviously it's a tragedy. Obviously, anytime you're talking about genocide, wiping out an entire group of people, what more can be done to help those people out there who may not be getting the support that they need from the government?
I honestly, this is a horrible answer. I don't know. I don't know because right now we know that most of the people in our government know about this and they're choosing to turn a blind eye. Wow. Both parties, in my opinion, are. I also think that people are afraid. You think about the CCP and they're very powerful. And I do feel like if they're able to impact our First Amendment abilities here in the United States, just think about TikTok as one example, that they are able to do a lot of damage. So I feel that it's something where we need politicians to be brave enough to have these conversations, brave enough to directly call out what's happening. I'm not seeing enough of that right now. I highly doubt it's due to lack of awareness.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So let me ask you this, though. You probably already know this, but do you feel like the CCP has already infiltrated our government?
I do. I strongly feel that way.
So like a lot of our politicians are compromised?
I absolutely feel that way. On both sides. Obviously, stronger on the left. They're going to look for the weak on wherever the weak lies. They're going to look for the weak. And that's where these rhinos come out. I mean, it's all about the almighty dollar for so many people. And they are going to accept, they already have, I'm sure of it, payment to keep quiet. You know, we have President Trump, who wasn't even being paid, was less valuable by the time he was out of office, but he did it for our country, for us. That's a true leader. He didn't make multi-millions being in office like so many. He didn't have book deals. He's not doing all of that. And that to me speaks volumes.
Yeah, you hit on the nail. He actually lost money by being president.
Yes, his net worth decreased.
So obviously you have a podcast yourself. Tell me about your podcast, KSOC Uncensored.
Yeah, so I'm on Right America Media or ramtv.live. And honestly, so it's really cool. My producer, he is actually an airline pilot and he was in the Air Force and he is a patriot. This is literally his passion. About a year ago, he created this network and it's for patriots, by patriots. And I have a show every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's KSOC Uncensored. My platform is We the People. And so I really wanted a platform for just your guy, gal next door. And they don't have to be creators. I just wanted people that had something to say to have somewhere to say it. And so what I've done is I'm having a guest on from every state. And I've hit 10 states already. And we just continue on. And it's really cool talking politics from every state within the U.S.
Wow, no, that's pretty dope. I like that idea. I like the concept. And so I would encourage anybody listening, anybody watching to definitely go check that out.
Thank you.
All right. So before we go, can you tell people exactly how to find you online?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at ksoc.lower48. I'm on YouTube as KSOC Uncensored, and it's KSOK Uncensored. And then I am on TikTok, but they shadow banned me. So I'm not as active on there, but on there it's KSOC Lower 48.
That's nice. All right. Well, again, thank you for taking the time and just sharing all that you did with us. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.